Okay, take two. It's lesson 9, and our next couple of lessons are super important because we are going to be dealing with web application security, which is obviously a very important and very relevant topic to what we are doing in this class. It's not enough to just know how to build websites, but we need to learn some of the basic fundamentals of how to secure them. Now, just before we do that, before we get into today's lesson, and we're going to spend the next 2 classes on basic authentication in PHP, it's much too important of a topic that we can cover just in one class. So we'll start implementing authentication today, and we'll carry that over into next week's class as well. And there's a number of different tools we're going to use for this. Before we do, I want to go over assignment 2. It's now available to you on Blackboard. Should be available. Yes, okay, so assignment 2 is here, and there are actually 2 different assignment options available to you. So I'm going to go over both, and I will be happy to answer questions. Okay, so there's 2 different options, A and B, and they are worth different amounts of grade. So option A is a smaller and simpler assignment, and you cannot get more than an 80%. Okay, so basically whatever grade you get on assignment A, I will mark it fully, but then I'll just multiply your grade times 0.8. So if you get 100%, it gets recorded in Blackboard as an 80%. So option A is easier. And in this case, you will take the work you did for assignment 1, your little 3-page application where we were doing, where you were implementing create and read functionality, and you're going to extend the functionality of that assignment. And you'll include update and delete functionality, user validation, which should already be here. You're going to implement security, some common elements, actually I'll take it, file upload, and error handling. Okay, so you're using your existing existing assignment 1 as your starting point for this option. So the 3 pages that you built in assignment 1, you can reuse. The assignment is 30% of the grade. That's true for either, doesn't matter which option. It is due Sunday, April the 10th at 11:59. So you have 3 weeks to work on this. I'm not going to lie to you, it's worth 30% because it's a big assignment. You are not going to be able to start this over the weekend and finish it. It's too much work. So this is why I'm giving you 3 weeks. You need to get started on the assignment now. To submit, you're going to give me a link to the GitHub repository. You can reuse the same assignment, the same repository used in assignment 1. And you must make a minimum of 4 commits that are made on at least 2 different days. But again, you're going to need more than a couple of days to do this. And then you're going to also include the link to the live website that runs on the domain lamp.computerstudies. Your repository should have a README. You may have a README file already from assignment 1. You can just update it. If you didn't do that in assignment 1, then you want to create it. You must do all your own work. You can't share code with a classmate. You can't just change the words in our in-class assignment. You can't just find a tutorial online and follow it word per word and submit it as your own. Everyone's submission is subject to a code review, so I may ask you to come to a one-on-one meeting and answer questions. Yes, thank you, Ram. We will do that. I appreciate that reminder. Yeah, there was a bug in my code last week in our PHP flicks that when we get started today, before we get into our authentication, we should fix. Thank you. And then you cannot make any changes to your AWS server or your Git repository after it's due. If you do, I'm simply going to mark the version that was due before the due date. I'm going to ignore any commits you make that are late. So what will we do? You will add a home page that describes the purpose of your site. You're going to create a shared header like we did in class last week, and that header should be shared on all your pages. The header should have a nav bar with links to the home page, as well as the pages you created in assignment 1. On the page that you already have created in your HTML table, You're going to add a link for adding a new record, as well as edit and delete links, and a delete confirmation. You'll implement edit and delete, which we didn't have to do for assignment 1. You're going to add error handling. So the techniques we used last week in class, you're going to create a 404 error page and generate an htaccess file that will direct any 404 responses to your 404 page. You'll also build a general error page and use try-catch blocks anywhere in the application where you are connecting to the database and trying to work with data in your database. If an error occurs, the user should be redirected to the general error page. You'll need working pages for register, log in, and log out. We're going to start building those today in our PHP Flicks. You're going to make changes in your header. So when the users are anonymous, the users will see in the header, they'll see links to register and log in. Again, we're going to do this in class today, or maybe even next week. Once a user has logged in, the register and login links get hidden, and we should see their username and logout links in the navigation bar instead. The nav bar will change depending on whether our user is anonymous or whether they are authenticated. You're also going to secure, you're going to hide the links for create, edit, and delete, so only someone who is logged in will see them. An anonymous user will not see those links. Sorry, actually, no, the file upload would be here, sorry. And we're also going to modify your site so that when a user is adding or editing a record, they should have the ability to upload an image along with that record. And we will tackle file uploads in a couple of weeks. And when editing a record, the current image should be displayed. If you didn't in assignment 1, you will need to implement some CSS. You can do your own, you can use Bootstrap or a theme. If you find the CSS somewhere else, just make sure you document it in the README file, as well as in your header.php. Where did that CSS file come from if you didn't create it? If you're using Bootstrap, that's fine, but you should be at least restyling it. It should not look exactly like our PHP Flicks with the same font colors, etc. Personalize the look of the site. And again, deploying through GitHub, making sure you use descriptively named commits. You're not just drag and dropping your files to GitHub. Invite me to the repository, and that your repository has a README file. And also make sure you upload your pages to AWS and include the link. And here is the grading rubric. So these are all the different components and how your mark will be generated. Up to 2 possible bonus marks for additional functionality that in PHP that shows some independent learning. And you will want to document that in your README file. In order to get bonus marks, your feature has to be fully working. If it partly works, you don't get bonus marks. And I can't help you with the bonus marks. That's independent learning. You have to get it working on your own. All the other components, you're free to ask for help with if you need. That's my job. Okay, and again, so this option is worth a maximum of 80%. Does anybody have any questions about this version of the assignment before we go and look at the second version? Okay, thank you, Tyler Prabjul. Okay, option B is to create a content management system. Okay, so here the grade is fully scaled up to 100%. It is a bigger assignment, it's more work, and it is more complex. However, I think you will learn quite a bit more. I've given this assignment out many times in the past, and a lot of students say that they learn an awful lot. It's fun to build and they learn an awful lot, but it is challenging. So what I suggest is, do an honest assessment about where you are with your learning in the course. Okay, if you feel you've got a pretty good handle on PHP and how it fits with MySQL and HTML and CSS, then I would encourage you to tackle option B. If you're really struggling in this course, then option A is probably more appropriate. This may be too difficult. You're going to submit the same things, due the same day. So again, give me the link to your repository. You're obviously going to make a new repository for this. Make sure it's private and that you give me access. There's my username. Again, at least 4 commits spread over 2 days. And you'll submit your link and include your README file. This assignment will probably take you in the neighborhood of 20 to 30 hours to do. So you've got 3 weeks to do it. So think about how that plays in with your schedule, your work schedule, your other assignments you've got coming up in your other courses. Okay, all the same rules apply, and final commit by 11:59. So content management system is a website builder. So you're almost something like WordPress, which is the world's most popular content management system. The idea is you build a website for someone and they can manage their own content and the navigation without needing you as their developer to make changes for them. So I will allow you to watch this video on your own. So I built a sample of this a few years ago of what this might look like, and I just recorded a simple YouTube demo of how this works. So there's really 2 parts to a content management site. There's a password protected administration area where users can add, edit, select, and delete the content. And then there is a public facing site that the site visitors just see the content. So you will build the site control panel where a user can register as an admin user. Passwords have to be hashed, all inputs have to be validated, usernames should be email addresses, and you need to check for duplicate users. We'll start doing some of these things today in class. And also working login and logout features. You should be able to see a list of users, edit and delete users from the database. And then the core of the content manager is the ability to manage content. So you should be able to list, add, edit, and delete web pages from the database. And each page needs a page title and content. Keep in mind, a page, you're not creating physical pages. These are virtual pages. So instead of creating a file called aboutus.php, you're creating a record in your database with the title of About Us, and the content will be some block of text. And the entire control panel must be password protected. It's not for the public. Only an authenticated user should be able to access the site control panel. There should also be an area to upload a site logo, which should appear in the header on all the pages. So that's the admin side of the site, and then the public-facing website, shared header, and all of the page names in the database should be displayed as links in the header. So if I create a page called test, there should be a link that is automatically generated in your header that says test and links to that page, the content on that page. And then you're creating a content managed site. There's really only one page here called index, but index will take an ID parameter, and that ID parameter will load different content. I've given you an example here. So if you have 4 pages in the database, home, about, services, and contact with the IDs 1, 2, 3, 4, your navbar would have those 4 links. Each of them would go to index.php, but pass in the appropriate page ID from your database. Your site has to have at least 5 pages. You don't need to put a lot of content in. Yes, they are virtual web pages. So your content should be fairly basic, but there should be some content in here that's sort of professional. It should look like a complete website, because again, you'll maybe want to show this website in your co-op job search. So don't just put a 1 sentence on each page. And again, same CSS rules, error handling requirements as for option A. And again, if you're not quite clear on how this works, there is a demo video that I've recorded. So I would recommend this assignment if you feel fairly comfortable with PHP and you're looking for a challenge. Well, no, Belinda, you're building both. You have to build the admin site, but then you also have to build the public site that is populated from the admin site. The virtual page in the public site with the shared header, as well as CSS and error handling. So the way I will test this is I'll create an account in your admin site, I'll log in, I'll create a virtual page in the admin site, and then I should be able to see a new link created in your public header. And when I click it, it should load the content that I add through the admin site. If I make an update to my page in the admin site and refresh the public website, that new content should show up. Yes. So you can want the video walkthrough, probably about 5 minutes. Okay, so the admin site is used to populate the public site. Whatever content is entered in the admin site is displayed in the public site. So I will try adding, editing, and deleting content from the admin site and make sure each time I change content, that content change is shown on the public site. So that's how content managers work. The idea is, let's say someone who owns a restaurant comes to you and says, build me a website, but I don't want to call you every time I need a change. I want you to give me a website where I can update my own page content or create new pages myself. And then anyone visiting my website can see a current copy of my content. So that's how content managers are used. The admin would typically be for whoever owns the site. So again, think that you're building this website for a client. The goal is to let them keep the content on their site up to date, even though they don't know how to code HTML. So a content manager is a website system where a non-technical person can keep content on the website up to date. So the admin side is typically whoever would own the website and own the business for the website. Yes, Tyler, that's exactly right. The public site is one index.php file, but the content on that page is modified based on the ID parameter that is passed to it. Right? This is like our movie details PHP page in our PHP Flicks. We don't have different pages for each movie. There's only one movie details, but the content changes based on the ID number. So it's the same idea, correct? Okay, so this is a big assignment. So if you're going to tackle this one, then you'll want to get started this week. I mean, can you clarify your question? I'm not sure I understand. So Tyler, how that works, when you're creating a new one, you're simply adding a new record to the database. You'll need a table in your database to store the pages. So that'll have like a page ID, page title, page content. So creating a new page really means creating a new record in the database. I mean, do we need to use JavaScript? You will need to use JavaScript for the delete confirmations. I don't think you're required to use JavaScript, and you will need JavaScript for one other thing that has to do with the debugging. So you'll need a little bit of JavaScript. Well, Elena, at minimum, you will need a users table and you will need a pages table. So you need a minimum of 2 tables. Paramvir, yeah, that's the idea of a content manager or CMS, is that the web pages are unlimited. So they can make as many pages as they want to. No, you're not creating a new table for each page. You're creating a new record in the same table. Much like in our PHP Flicks, every time we create a movie, we add a movie, right? We're not building a new table, we add a new record to the movies table. Well, in a content management system, every time we add a page, we create a new record in a pages table. Yes, I mean, the requirements around the CSS is here, and the CSS is 2 marks. So you can choose to do it with no CSS at all, but you will lose 2 marks. So I would suggest, before anybody makes a decision on which option to do, watch my video here. I'm not going to play it right now, but I'll let you watch it on your own time. I'm really happy my browser's up to date. How about you? I think the video is about 5 minutes. Okay, it's only 1.5 minutes, so you can watch the video and decide. Oh no, sorry, it is 6 minutes. This is my old streaming software with Google Hangouts. So there's a 6-minute demo. We'll show you the admin panel and how the admin panel is used to populate the public website. So have a look at that video, and then you can decide which option you want. You don't have to let me know ahead of time which option you're going to do. That is entirely up to you. Are there any other questions about the assignment? Belinda, that's correct. And then and those links are not only does it create a link in the nav, but when you click the link, then that changes the content that's showing on the page. So the content that corresponds to that link is displayed. Yes, Elena, the video shows an example. So my suggestion is, if after you watch the video, you still don't feel you really understand what a content management system is, then you're probably better off with option A. Because if you don't understand the system, what the system is supposed to do, it's going to be difficult for you to build. That's right, Belinda. That's exactly correct. So again, think of the control panel again. Imagine your favorite restaurant has asked you to build them a website. You're going to build a control panel for the restaurant management so that they can log in whenever they want and announce, we have a new special, we have a new event, we've hired a new chef. so that the control panel lets them add new pages or modify the content of existing pages. They don't have to ask you to do it on an ongoing basis. I mean, the position of showing the content, no, you control the positioning and layout. They simply can edit the links in the nav bar and the content that loads on each link, the text that's loaded. But in a content management system, that you still set up the design and layout. So the user has no control over where things go. Yes, the login would take you to the control panel. No, the user's not going to style their pages. That's not the goal. We wouldn't want our customers to have the ability to style the pages. Paramveer, that's not required, but you can add that if you like. The user should be able to add one image, which is they should be able to control what logo is displayed in the header. So they should be able to upload a logo, and if they want to change the logo in the header, that's part of the requirement that they can do that. If you want to allow users to include images in the page content itself, that's not required. It's a little more advanced. But if you complete this and you get it all working and you decide you want to attempt to do that as well, then you can. Yes, Belinda, that's exactly what a content manager is. It's letting the users edit the HTML content of their own site, even though they don't know how to use HTML. We just give them an input and we store the HTML content in the database. That's exactly right. So it's a template system. We're creating a website template and we're giving them access to put whatever content they want into the template. Yep, that's a good description. Elena, I'm sorry, can you clarify what you mean? I'm not sure what you mean. Oh, that doesn't matter. You can pick anything you like. So you can make up, so if you're going to make a content management system, that is up to you. One thing you could do, which students have done in the past, is if there is a local business that you like to go to as a customer, and maybe they don't have a website, or they have a website and you think it's not very good, you could make a sample website for them. Maybe even go in and show it to them and see if they're interested in paying you for it. But it is up to you. So you can choose the content management to be about any kind of site. It is up to you. No, Viraj, I mean the opposite. So you should have pages like this. I've given you 4 examples here. So pages would be things like home would be one, about would be another, services, contact. So there should be at least 5 links with content. Yes, Kushwinder, different admin users could edit the same pages. And that's normal. Again, we'll think of the example of a restaurant where there's an owner and there's a manager. Maybe both, and maybe so maybe both of them would have access. No, Masa, there is a link. When you click the link, it's going to load that page and display that content. So again, page title and content will be selected based on the ID. So you have to just do more than a link. If I click the services page, there should be content in the database about the services page that should display. So every page, it needs a link, but it also needs content that's related to it. Yes, Hamid. Kushwinder, it's actually a primary key. So these are the page IDs, the primary keys. So you use the primary key to fetch the page title and content. No, Paramveer, you're not making a new table for every page. You have one table that stores all of the pages. Just like in our PHP Flicks, we don't create separate tables for each movie. Okay. Sorry, maybe I misunderstood your question. The links to each page and content are stored in the same table. Same table, each page is a different record within the table. Just like each movie we add is a new record in the movies table. So you're storing the pages the same way that we are storing the movies in our PHP Flicks application. So creating a new page is not creating a new table, it's creating a record in the existing table. Correct. And then the other column will be an ID. You've got the right idea. Now you will need a users table as well. For either option, you can use the same users table as we're using for PHP Flicks, because we don't have access to create multiple databases on AWS. So you can use the same users table we're going to build in class today. You can also use that table for your assignment. That's fine. Okay, it's 8:35, so I think what I would like to do, if you have other questions, feel free to email me, or if you're still confused, you can book an office hours appointment. I'd like to go back to our PHP Flicks application. I do want to fix an error that Ram pointed out in last week's code, and then we will start working on our authentication. So I'm going to connect to the VPN. I'm really hoping the web server is going to be more cooperative today. Pardon me. I'll open up XAMPP and start our server. We will do the lab before that, Tyler. It actually is going to be done in class. So just bear with me. The lab is not actually a coding lab. The lab is basically participating in a discussion on Blackboard. Okay, so the issue we had was in the catch block here. Yes, Josh, and that's okay. All right, so I'm going to open up site from last week. So I'll go to PHP Flicks, I'll click on Movies. So the issue was here. The issue was that if I disconnected from the VPN, or I won't disconnect. Maybe I'll just make an error in my database file. Just take my password out for a moment. So if I Now, Ram, this is where we got the error, wasn't it? That without the database connection on our movie details, you said you were getting And Ram, was this on localhost or only when you uploaded it to AWS? It might be only on AWS. I think this works locally. And Ram just confirmed that for me. So if my database connection was wrong, my try-catch should give me the error. But I think maybe this doesn't work on AWS. I suspect this is the problem. Ram, let me know if I'm doing it correctly. I'm just going to upload my, okay, so it worked locally, but when I try this, so I'm going to put in an invalid password here. I think on AWS this doesn't work. And I didn't test it and I should have. So if I do this and go to movie details, it did seem to work. Okay, Ram, you may have to try yours again. Okay, I will just show an alternative. Ram was getting an error that said, I think it said, headers already sent. So some of you may have noticed you got this error that says cannot modify it in your try catch block. When we tried to redirect, Ram was getting this error. It's a common error. Other people may have gotten it before. So when we try to do our header location, depending on the way our Apache server is configured, we might get this response that we can't redirect once we've already sent HTML content to the browser. So Ram was getting this error. Doesn't seem to be happening for me, but there is a fix for this. There's a couple of ways we can do it. And the easiest way is to use JavaScript instead. So what we can do is we can use JavaScript. There's a few different ways we can do it to redirect instead of using header location. So when we put our catch block in the middle of our page and we've already sent a bunch of HTML in the browser, you may get an error, this error that says cannot modify header information. And this would prevent our error page from loading. So I'll put our fix in here. There's a few different ways around it. So I've just shared this Stack Overflow article in the chat. So Ram, you can try this. There's a couple of different ways. So one is using a JavaScript function with the location.href to whatever page you want to redirect. So there's several ways of doing it. Or you can use a meta tag with a refresh. This will also redirect to, you would just put in error.php. So here's our solution. Belinda, how do you check it? So the way I did it was I took out my password, or you could disconnect from the VPN for a moment. Either would work. So take out or change your password or disconnect from the VPN. And then if you just go to one of your pages with a try catch block, so if you are not getting your error page, you may get just an error printed on the page here, like your page will crash with this error that just cannot modify header information. Header's already sent. So if you get that message, then you'll need to use one of the fixes in this article. That's the way to test it. Mine seems to be working okay, but Ram let me know after class when he tried on this page, on the movie details, that he was getting that error. Header's already sent. So there are a few fixes available in that Stack Overflow article. In effect, we will use JavaScript to redirect instead of PHP. That's the workaround. I'll make a comment in here as well. Well, you would comment this out. And we could do something like this. Echo. So we can use JavaScript. Sorry, it's not header location. It's location dot, href equals. Okay, so if you still got your error page, then you don't have, then it works fine for you and you don't have to change it. But if you get this error that says header's already sent and your error page does not load, this redirect doesn't work. So Ram, you could use this version or one of the other versions of this in that article. So we're using JavaScript to do our redirection instead, and the JavaScript method is location.href. So Ram, this should work the way I've done it on line 85, as well as there's several other versions of this using JavaScript from that article. Well, Belinda, that's because the register and login pages don't work. And remember, we set 404 requests to point to the live server. So that's why. So not so much maybe fascinating as it's actually doing what we told it to do. Okay, so I'm just going to put my password back. So if this is working, you don't have to make any changes. But this is an alternative using JavaScript. If you get a headers already sent error in using header location in PHP to redirect to a new page. This is a workaround for that. I know, who would have thought, eh? It's like Monday morning, you're not supposed to work. Okay. All right, it's 8:47. So Ram, thank you for the reminder about that. Here. Things. Okay, it's 8:47. I think rather than starting into authentication and then taking a quick break, let's just take our break a little bit early. Okay, so actually, when we come back, we're going to come back in 10 minutes at 8:57, and we will start with your lab, which should take 5 minutes. So let's take 10 minutes here. We will be back at 8:57, and we'll jump into the lab.